Thank you, Madam Chair, and the witnesses. Since 1976, the gun industry has been exempt from oversight by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, despite over 45,000 Americans dying from gun-related injuries in 2020 and over 25,000 so far this year. A teddy bear has more safety oversight than guns do. Mr. Busey, why would including guns under the Consumer Product Safety Act make them safer?
I'm not an expert on the Consumer Product Safety Act. I'm sorry, Congresswoman.
But do you think they should be included, like teddy bears and cribs and almost everything else you can name, and guns are exempt?
I believe that all freedoms, especially the freedom to own guns and the freedom to manufacture and sell guns, must be balanced with a commensurate amount of regulation and responsibility. And I think it's up to legislators like you and the other folks on this committee to decide that.
Well, I have a bill that would do just that, just this. The Firearms Safety Act will remove the gun industry's exemption under the Consumer Product Safety Act. Having strong safety standards on firearms is critical, and there's no good reason for firearms to be the only consumer product not under the supervision of the CPSC. I want to shift our focus to gun trafficking. The city of Chicago is often highlighted as an example of why strict gun laws don't work. But what people fail to realize time and time again is that over 60% of crime guns come from out of state. This happens in other cities as well. New York City's Mayor Eric Adams testified before this committee that the NYPD has taken over 3,000 illegal guns off the street in 2022 alone, many which were trafficked through the so-called iron pipeline. Gun manufacturers are often contacted by the ATF to aid in their tracing investigations following the path of a gun from the manufacturer to the crime scene. Mr. Kalloy, does Ruger take any steps to identify problematic patterns of dealers or stop shipments of firearms to dealers who sell a disproportionate amount of crime guns?
Congresswoman, in the case of Ruger, we distribute our firearms in what we call a two-step distribution process. We sell through a network of 15 fairly large wholesalers, who in turn, they are all federally licensed firearms licensees. They then sell to the individual retailers who are also licensees. So we don't have visibility into those individual dealers. We sell to that much smaller network of our 15 wholesalers.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel, does Daniel Defense take any steps to identify problematic patterns of dealers or stop shipments of firearms to dealers who sell a disproportionate number of crime guns?
Congresswoman, we are a federally licensed by the ATF to manufacture firearms, and we sell our products through federally licensed dealers. And we are very good at our ability to make sure that our firearms are transferred legally through legal dealers. If there is a pipeline of guns coming into your district, the people who bring those in illegally, that's a crime, and those people should be prosecuted.
I don't disagree. Mr. Sampson, in your view, could these companies do more to stop illegal gun trafficking? And if so, what could they do?
Yes, they could. For starters, manufacturers could be much more vigilant around the distributors and dealers that they sell to. So even if they don't necessarily go directly to a dealer, if they go to a distributor and they realize that that distributor is working with dealers who are selling crime guns over and over again, that should trigger an investigation and perhaps a change to their business practices. Another thing that manufacturers could do is change the way that they design their guns. And you mentioned consumer product safety. That's a large part of what manufacturers have control over that dealers and distributors do not have control over. They could do things like chamber load indicators or some of the procedures that would make it harder for someone to use a weapon that doesn't belong to them. And that would also go a long way to stopping gun crime.
Thank you. And lastly, one last question for Mr. Kaloi and Mr. Daniels. We have heard today support for abolishing the ATF. Do you support abolishing the ATF?
Speaking on behalf of Ruger, no, we do not. We work closely with our regulators, and we do not support that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Kaloi. We are licensed dealers and we are licensed manufacturers. We sell through, we are regulated by the ATF, and we are not in support at this time of eliminating the ATF.
Okay, the gentlelady's time has expired.